What the? I guess that's how we doing it today. All right. All right. What's up, everybody? Today, I'm actually going to do this a little bit different because this is going to be the first because I'm going to start doing 2 live shows per day. One is going to actually be 2 hours earlier. I was meaning to do it today at 10. You'll probably see me tomorrow at 10. But this first episode is actually going to be shorter, not going to be quick. And I welcome everybody from Instagram, not Instagram, but TikTok, and everybody here on YouTube. And what's up, Duck the Police? Now, today, as you see the title, it's the story of Miguel. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this one is because I have a lot of people that have questions and certain things that come in. And when they're asking these questions, one of the things that pop up is landlord questions. And what happens is people believe your landlord has full autonomy for whatever reason to do anything. Now, the reason why I want to give this story is because you're probably going to see more. Anyway, let's get into the story. Had a client and his landlord, we're going to call him Miguel. Well, the client, he calls me and he goes, "Hey, I'm dealing with this guy and he seems kind of shisty." So I told him, "Give me a little bit of feedback of what's going on and um how it's going." So he goes, "When we were initially met, we were supposed to meet up. He canceled a couple hours before the meeting was supposed to happen. That was on like a Friday. So Saturday, he said he canceled again, but he did this one minutes before they were supposed to meet. So he was like, he had noticed a little pattern. So they set again to meet that Sunday. On that meeting on Sunday, it was clear that this guy was not really a man of his word because not only was he there late, he had basically just a random excuse that had nothing behind it. So even then, the context was supposed to be how they're going to do the contract for the home or whatnot. And in the midst of that, they came up with a agreement. So now, even with the initial meeting, he chose or saw that he was going to change their written agreement, which they had done through message or whatever. So because they had been messaging each other back and forth, because that's how they got met up for the property. Now, the thing is, when they were going through the context, you have to understand something. When you're dealing with people, you have to be able to read people very quickly. And one of the things he noticed that this guy, again, like I said, wasn't a man of his word. So a couple days after the move in, he showed up. And thank you, I have no hair, I'm bald. But he has no they have a meetup, and then at the meetup, he attempts to change the agreement, which he's already accepted money for, and the client has already moved into the property. Well, this goes on for a couple months because when it's time to fix something, he sets a time. Miguel sets a time that he's going to come and do whatever. And then at the end, he doesn't call, doesn't show up, nothing. Doesn't respond to text message, doesn't respond to calls. Now, what's crazy about this, and again, I'm going to get to the actual legal points of all this. I'm giving you the context. And Sarah, I am talking about the story of Miguel. Miguel is a landlord, and how landlords don't always know what the actual legal obligations they have or understand law. So they will attempt to do things. And in the midst of them doing things, they begin to violate law as well as violate rights. And that's what, but I'm giving you the story first. Now, So in the midst of that, goes forward, and let's say a couple months pass by. Client contacts me again. He goes, "Hey, my landlord just came by. He tells me that he wants me to do something in the yard." So I told him, I said, send me the rental agreement, lease agreement. So he sends it over. I said, well, there's nothing in the lease agreement that requires you to do anything in the yard. I said, was it a demand or was he just asking? He said, no, he was being kind of matter of fact about it. I said, okay. I said, well, yeah, you're not, if you don't choose to do it, it's not part of your lease, it's not a violation, not a breach. So he goes, okay. A couple weeks later, he goes, landlords contact me again, and he told me since I didn't do the thing that wasn't in the lease, he was going to file for an eviction. So I just kind of responded playfully, hey, ask him how that's going to work. So he sends him Texas state bill. I forgot what it is, but it I gave him a response. It basically was laughing like, yeah, good luck, because that has nothing to do, squatters' rights don't don't have anything to do with a person that has a lease. So yeah, that state bill that has nothing to do with you. So now what happens is, again, I'm one of those people. If you've heard me before, I talked about some of the things that my father's taught me. And one of the things he taught me was I'm a gambling man. I do that. But he taught me about poker. The rules of poker was simple. You don't play the hand, you play the man. So I asked my client, hey, so are you a gambling man? He said, yeah. I said, great, do this. Because he was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and do. I said, no, don't do it. Let him hang himself, because I am a firm believer in not interrupting someone when they're out doing things that they have no business doing. So again, his landlord doesn't know law. So now he goes out, and I told him, I said, withhold rent, because the second he files, you are not obligated to pay the rent until after the court date. He says, okay. So the first rolls by, because the court date, he files in the middle of April, right? So April's left. Now goes into May. He doesn't pay the rent May 1st. Well, now I tell him, pay the rent the day before the court date. He goes, why? I said, because if he's shiesty, like you saying he is, he's not going to resist that he's already filed. Because here in Texas, once you file, if you're paid and the issue no longer exists, that case is dead. But, and here's where we caught him at. If he continues forward with that case, that is evidence of fraud. And in Texas, if a landlord gets caught committing fraud, you are entitled to 2 months rent plus $1,000. But here's the caveat. If it involves an eviction or eviction attempt, it now goes into the items in the property. So you take a small claims issue to where now, let's say, just give me an example. Let's say it's me. Well, here's the problem, because I just realized yesterday that I am a horrible hoarder, because I have 30 pair of sneakers. It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life, but I literally have 30 pair of sneakers. Now, here's the next part of that. Each one of those sneakers are priced at over $100, right? So not big, but again, twice my rent, $1,000, sneakers. Now you see my new clothes and all that good stuff. Well, now you see my jewelry. Now you got all my computers. You have my phones. Now the number starts going bigger and bigger and bigger, because you have furniture. You have other items that are in the property. So now you've taken a $1,000 issue and now made it a federal issue where you're above $75,000. And when I talk about that, when you're going through it, that level of fraud, because they'll walk into it unknowingly. And it is simple as continuing a suit or an eviction attempt when you're not when there's no basis or no grounds. And at the end of that, you can now hold the landlord liable. Because even in a case in Arizona, I had a friend of mine, which Arizona is a different type of state. But the funniest part about that was he had a similar issue, and oh, appreciate that. He was having an issue, and one of the things was because his landlord was completely shisty, completely. So one of the things that was funny to me, I told him, "Hey, let him walk into it," and this was a couple of years ago. He walked into it. He then sued him. In the midst of suing him, the tenant sued the landlord because the landlord committed fraud. Well, the landlord started ignoring the tenant and thought the lawsuits and everything, the notices that he was getting, he just started ignoring him. So here's here's where it got fun. So I told him, I said, here's the great part about it. I said, if he's making payments on the house, go pay the taxes. Because in Arizona, you only need to pay taxes 2 years, and then you can own the property. And I told him, I said, don't worry, let that court case just drag. Just let it drag. So as he allowed it to drag on, he paid the taxes. Again, the guy's ignoring him, not paying him any attention, thinking everything he's doing is play. So again, year two comes around. He pays the taxes again. Now he files not only a lien for the past due taxes, which is now he also has interest that he can be paid on it, but he also now can foreclose on that same property, which he did. So now what he ended up doing was taking the property from the landlord because the landlord did not take any of the stuff that he was doing seriously. And he also did not understand what the aspects were because there are a lot of people out here, because even something as simple as not returning a deposit. Because just give you an example, my deposit is right at $1,700. I leave, I send a address or whatever. My landlord does not send me that money back. He is now liable for 2 times 1,700 plus $1,000 plus court and legal fees. And if he doesn't pay, I can then lien the property. And seeing a lot of people don't understand that. They take a lot of these things and think that, again, the landlord has full autonomy. They can do anything they want, and it's not the case. So understanding, going through all of this is just the story of Miguel is many landlords go out thinking they know something, when in fact they are completely oblivious on how the actual process works. So they'll attempt to circumvent that process and then skate around and hope that you know as little as they do. But this is one of those where I can tell people, because if you've seen in one of my bios, I talk about I help people in real estate issues. Because I even had one that was attempting a foreclosure in Virginia. He ended up calling me literally a week before it happened. And the guys, they were ignoring him, ignoring him, ignoring him. And then the day of the sale, everything just stops. And I told him, I said, go ahead and do what you need to do now. Because most people, they're doing things from a place of not just assumption for the most part. Because most of these attorneys hope you don't know what they're doing is illegal, or they hope you don't know how to stop them from doing the thing that they're doing that they is not right, not lawful. And that is one of the things that I tell you again, most people run into when they're doing these types of things. So if there was, this is, how can I put this? It's one of those where you can actually just get into understanding that everything that you do, there's a process to it. It's not only good to just know one side of that process, because most people that you run into, they'll give you the how to file. They'll give you what to file next, but they will not give you how to defend and or how to attack or how to go through their mistakes, because I just had a young lady send me an email where she screenshotted her own conversation, and one of the things she said was, he helped me use their words against them. Because what you can't do is argue with yourself. So when you're using the landlord's actual actions against them, they can't argue with something they have done. Because just like by filing, whenever you've paid or the breach no longer exists, that is a continuation of a fraud because the breach is gone. And a lot of people get caught up in that and they'll just fold. But this is where you can now become defensive and actually protect yourself. And this is one of the things that I also do when we're talking about criminal defense, when you having traffic tickets, when you have um, dope charges, gun charges, um, hell, unlawful searches. These are the things where you have these unlawful arrests where you're taken down because they tell you, oh, well, we don't have body camera. Well, this is the same thing because they got to answer why they don't have it because it is a requirement. And understanding going through these things is not just having one piece of the law, it's understanding how to enforce the things that you are attempting to do. Now, like I told you, this was going to be short. I am going to be back on later on. So I hope you guys are ready. And if you got any questions, shoot them in the comments. Let me know that you love your boy. You can always donate, hit that like button on both sides because they're all good people on both sides. But at the end of the day, the whole point is to get better, get stronger, and learn more. And those of you that don't just love my voice, we get to keep going forward. Oh, and absolutely. And conspiracy. I love the fact that you're in here and you're also a member. So shout out to you. And yes, because when I write with purpose because everything I treat it as if it's mine. So I'm going to treat your case like it's mine. So whenever I write it, I'm writing to attack. I'm a hammer. So everything I see looks like a nail. So until later, haven't figured out a late night time yet, but one's coming. So just know I'll be on later on this evening or later on tonight. And let's keep going. Let's keep growing. Holla at you people in a little bit.